Lucha libre was and still is a popular form of entertainment in Mexico. Juana Barraza dreamed of being a luchadore and started wrestling on the indie circuit, calling herself the Lady of Silence. But her fake persona in the ring gave way to another side of her that was way more dangerous. As dozens of elderly women were found strangled to death in their homes over the years in Mexico City, the public became outraged at the police's lack of progress on the case. But a lucky break in 2006 led them to discover that the killer was far from who they expected. Welcome to History's Biggest Villains. Juana Barraza Samperio was born on December 27, 1957 in Hidalgo, Mexico, a rural city north of Mexico City. At the age of 12, her mother, Justa, gave her up to a man for 3 beers. The man would repeatedly rape her, fathering 4 children with her. Juana would always harbor a deep resentment towards her mother for letting this happen. Her eldest son was killed during a mugging as he was hit several times with a baseball bat. Her oldest daughter had been married and left the home, but she lived close. By the 90s, Mexican professional wrestling, or lucha libre, was an extremely popular form of entertainment in the country. Juana became obsessed with it, making the time to go to many local events. She organized events and even competed in the ring herself, going by La Dama del Silencio, or the Lady of Silence. She played the role of a rudo, or villain, describing herself as rudo to the core. But her villainous nature in the ring was really a disguise for her even more sinister disposition. She would cruise public places and stalk elderly women until they were on their own, gaining their trust by offering to help them with their groceries or do cleaning work, allowing her access to their homes. On some occasions, Juana pretended to be a social worker with information about benefits. She would then use objects such as phone cables, tights, or a stethoscope to strangle her victims, then ransack their homes for valuables. She managed to get a list of women who were on a government assistance program. Then, she used this list to identify who lived alone and used fake credentials to pretend that she was a nurse sent by the government to check their vital signs. She would use this to figure out their daily routine and choose the best time to kill them. As the new millennium started, the killings continued. The local press had dubbed her the Matavijitas, or Little Old Lady Killer. In 2003, she was linked to 32 murders in Mexico City, including the murder of 92-year-old Maria Repper, who was found strangled in her bedroom on October 18th. The police were heavily criticized for dismissing evidence of a serial killer in Mexico City. They viewed it as media sensationalism as late as the summer of 2005, almost a decade after the first series of murders. They were also extremely overwhelmed by the amount of tips they received, as they had never worked on a case like this before. The police claimed that they didn't want to cause mass hysteria in the public, but the public were outraged by their lack of progress on the case. By November, they received witness statements about the killer wearing women's clothing to gain access into the victims' homes. They later got reports of a masculine-looking woman hanging around several murder scenes. Since the instance of a female serial killer was extremely rare, the police were convinced that the killer was a transvestite. This led to intense interrogations of transvestites in the Mexico City area, an action that would later be widely criticized. In March 2004, police arrested Araceli Vasquez as one of her fingerprints were found in the home of an elderly victim. She had been linked to a number of robberies in the area, as she had deceived a number of old women into signing up for financial aid cards. She was found in possession of several watches, a white wig, and several false ID cards. Police believed that she could also be linked to as many as 5 murders. Later, the police also arrested Mario Tablas, who was seen wearing a white coat and a wig near the murder scenes. Authorities determined that he had pretended to be a nurse to establish a relationship with multiple old women, then scammed them with the promise of a financial aid card. They searched his home and found belongings of the women linked to the case. They believed he was responsible for up to 9 murders. They found a Bible in his home with a message on the front cover supposedly telling him that he was anointed by God to kill these women. Unfortunately, police couldn't find any conclusive evidence to prove that either Vasquez or Tablas were the actual killers. They determined that they were just copycats. The efforts to quell some of the fears of the public had failed, and they were back at square one. The frequency of the murders increased from every year to every few months to every few weeks. Political pressure from opposition and the citizens were even calling for the resignation of the district attorney. However, on January 25th, 2006, Juana approached 82-year-old landlord Ana Maria de los Reyes, asking for a glass of water before entering her home. Once they were inside the house, Juana grabbed a stethoscope and strangled Ana to death. As she ran from the scene, she was spotted by Ana's lodger. He saw her flee the scene before he stumbled upon Ana's body. He flagged down a passing police car, and she was quickly arrested with a stethoscope, pension forms, and false identification as a social worker. She initially tried to say that she was a part of a group, saying to the press, "With all due respect to the authorities, there are several of us involved in extortion and killing people, so why don't the police go after the others too?" But according to them, Juana acted alone. They could match her fingerprints to prints left behind at the scene of several murders while ruling out other possible suspects. Mexico City prosecutors had evidence that linked her to at least 10 murders, with them believing that she may have killed as many as 49 elderly women. In 4 cases in 2005, that police said were linked, the victims were strangled by women's tights, a curtain cord, or a phone cable after they opened their doors to the killer. Juana soon confessed to killing Ana and 3 other women, but denied involvement in the other killings, saying that she had visited Ana's house in search of laundry work. At her trial, she said, "I only killed one little old lady, not the others. It isn't right to pin them on me." When asked for her motive, she simply said, "I got angry." Wow. Some criminologists around the case believe that Juana was so damaged by her childhood that she began to kill these women as they reminded her of her mother. I mean, that doesn't make sense. On March 31st, 2008, Juana was found guilty on 16 charges of murder and aggravated burglary, including 11 separate counts of murder. She was sentenced to 759 years in prison. While in prison, she has been working as a gym instructor and sells tacos to support her family. According to some news reports, Juana also got married and divorced while serving her sentence. In 2023, a Netflix documentary film released entitled The Lady of Silence, the Matavijitas murders. Some tabloids took offense at footage shown of Juana using a necktie on a member of her legal team to reenact how she murdered her victims. I think this case was sensationalized so much because in Mexican culture, old women are really held in such a really high regard. You know, like abuelita. You always think abuelita is like the really smart, wise old woman, someone that you would protect. Like you would protect an old woman. We not only have someone who's killing old women, someone who's killing dozens of old women and getting away with it. The police aren't doing anything. And I think that's a theme with a lot of the Mexican police. I've seen a lot of these stories. The police are really inept. Like they really can't do anything. Sometimes they get paid off. They get bribed. You know, they're really prone to corruption. But it's just ridiculous. I don't get how you go from you could have been a good wrestler to now you choose to be a murderer of old women. Like, what did old women do to you? You probably saw somebody who was weak, a victim who was weak, someone that you knew couldn't defend themselves. And the crazy part, they were nowhere close to solving this case. They got lucky that someone saw her leave somebody's house. They got lucky because they were nowhere close. They were just arresting people just to say they arrested someone. Thank you for listening to the story. I really appreciate all you guys. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to my channel. Please do not forget to turn on my post notifications if you haven't already. But thank you. Please be safe. Stay on the grind. I'm out. Peace.